As summer draws to an end, now is the time to do more and save more at Biltmore. Be among the first to experience the Leonardo da Vinci 500 Years of Genius exhibit. Save with online ticket discounts and overnight stay packages that include admission to the exhibit and admission to Biltmore House. Plan your visit and save now at Biltmore.com.
Hello everyone and welcome to the direct-to-video connoisseur. I'm Matt. As always, I'm joined by Jamie. Jamie, how are you this evening?
I am doing okay. Glad to be here.
Yeah, and so we decided this week we were trying to figure out for a movie what to do, and over the weekend, Leonard Nemoy passed, and Jen had talked about wanting to do Trekkies, because her parents were Trekkies, her mom especially, and she had this she has this really cool shirt from the 75 convention that her mom gave her, which she kind of wore it a little bit in the 90s, so it's got some holes, but it's really cool. And so she, I had told her about Trekkies, and we decided to watch it. And then it kind of just turned into this like, oh, maybe we should do that this week. And so then when I contacted you, I wasn't even thinking, I kind of had forgotten that Leonard Nimoy passed, and I brought it up to you, and you were like, hey, of course, we'll do that. So now that's what we're here. We're now doing Trekkies.
Yes, we are.
Yes. So maybe we should. I don't try to think the best way to approach this film. Should we start with Leonard Nimoy? I mean, what as far as like Star Treks go? I mean, I feel like Leonard Nimoy is probably the most. I don't know. He's like the most universally loved among. There's no debate about whether or not Leonard Nimoy is cool or not, or whether or not you'd want him on your crew. Like maybe there's a debate between Shatner and Kirk and not Shatner and Kirk, Shatner and Picard or something like that. But Spock is universally loved, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so. And people recognize the Vulcan greeting and pointy ears, and there are things that you just associate with Star Trek, and Spock's character is one of them.
Yeah, that's a good point because you think about like when you watch Trekkies and you see the Klingons going to Carl's Jr. and just making a complete debacle of themselves.
Well,
Yeah,
there's a plethora of those things, and I will be adamant about all those points that we're going to hit.
Yes. Hopefully none of my friends call me, but if they do, I could always tell them, "This is the worst time you could have called me." But,
Well, let's talk about our history with this movie because you've actually seen this quite a few times, right?
So when I first heard that there was this movie, I was just like, "Oh my God, I've got to see this." So my friend Petrowski and I, who I think I've brought up Petrowski on here before, but he was a friend that we get into trouble or whatnot in school. But we went to Barnes and Noble, and of course they had a vast like video section. We couldn't find it originally, so they had to order it for us. So it was one of those funny deals where they special ordered it. We went to pick it up, and then we saw it on the shelf as well. But anyway. We watched it one time through and just could not believe how much fun the movie was. Between our friend Gabe, the de-bah-cle guy, the Filker, the commander, of course, the commander.
Adams, commander.
Yes, the commander. I mean, it was so much that we couldn't take it all in the first time. I mean, there were other things too, like Petrowski had a penchant. I mean, we were very young at the time. We were in our early 20s, so very juvenile. He had a penchant for making good fart noises at the right times. So that really poignant, touching scene where Jimmy Doohan's talking about that girl that he met,
The suicide girl.
right? And she ends up, not killing herself and becoming a successful astronomer, I believe it was, or physicist.
I thought it was like an electrical engineer.
Oh, that's what it was. You're right, electrical engineering. That's right. But I remember Petrowski had some really well-placed fart sounds while Jimmy Doohan's doing this very somber, explanation of this thing that was really touching and really nice. But that's kind of how the thing went for us. It just kind of became our thing, and we'd call each other. We'd say that we were adamant about things and ask about goody two shoes. And of course, other friends. I brought it to for friends Brett and Ian, who I'm not sure who's listening tonight, but any of them are. They, of course, the Commander. We always talked about the Commander and the de-bah-cle and all of that. So it just became this big thing amongst us, and I think we still use some of the terms. I mean, there isn't a time near where my parents live. These people that lived up the road owned a lot of land, and they decided to do one of those build houses in the backyard kind of deals and build their own little road. And they got to name the road, themselves. So they decided to name it Commander's Way. So every time we saw that, we would just giggle, like, oh, the Commander lives there, and. So yeah, the film just kind of took on those epic proportions, and it was great this weekend to kind of relive some of that and watch it with Jen and sort of share it with her. So it was a lot of fun.
Well, I came to this movie a while ago. It was several months ago because of Brian, and it became sort of a running joke. It was in the Netflix queue.
Mm-hmm.
It made me queue it up in the Netflix queue, and it was a threat movie. It was like, because he's like, hey, you want to watch Trekkies? I'm like, no. And he's like, come on, let's. I'm like, I really, no, I'm just not feeling it. So it became like a threat. It's like, all right, if, I forget what it was now, but I made him watch something with me for a show that I was doing. He does all the time, bless him. He does.
He does.
And so then that became sort of like his bargaining chip. He's like, okay, well, because you made me watch this movie, I now have the right to pull Trekkies out whenever I want, and you cannot shoot it down. And that was, I was like, all right, fine, all right. Well, eventually it ended up happening. And I couldn't say no. I could not shoot it down because I owed it to him. So we watched it, and I really ended up enjoying it. It was hilarious. It was touching. It was, and what it is, it's a glimpse, really. It's not merely about Star Trek fans. This is really just a glimpse into fanaticism as a whole.
Right.
Kind of like Room 237 is with The Shining. So you just get an idea of how people out there are devoted. And this is, of course, specifically referring to Star Trek and Star Trek fans. And whether you're a Trekkie or a Trekker, it doesn't really matter. You're all covered here. But you get to see the lengths to which people will go when they are devoted to something. And being in the horror genre, I know all about that because horror fans are really devoted, and there are conventions and all. Well before there were horror conventions, there were Star Trek conventions, and I guess they kind of started the whole thing, so it was really fascinating, and I don't have any issue at all watching it now. It's really entertaining. So even if you're not a Star Trek fan, which I actually am a fan of the original series, beyond that I never cared. But I did used to love the original series when I was a kid. But you don't have to be a fan to appreciate what this film is about and what it presents to you. You just have to understand fandom on any level, and you'll find it entertaining. I don't really see how you can't. I really don't see how anyone could not find it entertaining. And so when you said, hey, you want to cover this for this week? I'm like, yeah. I mean, yeah, I've seen it, but I'll watch it again. I watched it again, just so I could refresh myself. But also, I was like, it's not that bad. So I went to Brian. I'm like, hey, would you mind watching Trekkies again for the show? And he's like, are you kidding? Of course not. And so we did, and it was entertaining. I still haven't seen the sequel. There is a second one. I haven't seen that one yet, but he wants to watch that after the show.
Yeah, so the sequel.
I will be watching that tonight.
Yeah, I was going to say the sequel is on Netflix as well. It's on Instant. And the sequel's an interesting one because you brought up horror fans, horror fanatics, and And I think you almost see more of you know how horror fanatics sometimes they have that there's a certain sanctimonious streak in a certain segment of the horror fan population where they only think certain horror is good and other horror they turn their noses up on or
Yes, we don't like them.
right. Well, you start to see those. You see those in the Trekkies, the Mister, the whole I'm a
Oh,
Trekker, and the ones that you had in the movie before in that first movie, they weren't all of these things, and all those that thing starts to creep its ugly head in, and there's this really great line, and maybe I shouldn't ruin it for you, but there's a great line where one of the convention promoters from the first movie. I can't remember his name, but the one that they interviewed a lot. He talked about how he did a convention with Gene Roddenberry, and Gene Roddenberry referred to Trekkies, and somebody in the front row said Trekkers, and he said, "No, they're Trekkies. I should know. I invented the thing."
nice.
Yes.
I love that shit.
Yes.
Get 'em.
Exactly. So I mean, I think that's.
Gary brought up Free Enterprise. I just went in the chat room there. I love that movie,
Oh,
by
it's
the way, too. Free Enterprise is hilarious.
mm. Now what is Free Enter? Is that the one? Maybe
That's the one with the what's his name from Will and Grace? Can't
Oh,
remember his name.
oh.
But the two guys or three guys? I think there's two guys, and they're going to be working with William Shatner. And is that the one, or is it the? There's another one with three guys. Oh, that's a Star Wars movie. Never mind. Anyway, so yeah, it's these two. It's the guy from Will and Grace. I cannot remember his name, but it's Will.
Will. Oh, yes, I know who you're talking about.
And that movie is so great because they do a lot of Star Trek stuff, but they're just like sci-fi geeks in general. So they throw out stuff, like Run. There's this whole series that is dedicated to
Oh, Jamie, did I lose you?
you know.
Oh, I can hear you now. I heard there was a car that just drove through there. I don't know what that was.
I don't know what happened.
Okay.
I have no idea what happened. What was the last thing you heard me say?
Now I don't remember. Cause
Okay.
I was like, what happened to? Oh, run. Something about running. Something about
Oh,
running.
it was there's this whole segment that's devoted to Logan's Run, and
Oh.
so it's just it covers a lot of different just geeky stuff. Anyway, it's fun. It's a fun movie. I actually haven't seen it in a while. I should watch it again, but fun stuff.
Hmm. Yeah, this movie, I think I went into it when I first watched it. I guess what that would be 15 years ago now. I had this expectation of pretty much what I got on. Or maybe there's no way. I guess you can really prepare yourself for the commander. Something like that. You can't prepare yourself for those kind of characters.
No, you cannot.
No, but
She she seems like a really good person because she does a lot of she finds community service important, and I appreciate that. I think that's wonderful. But at the same time, it's kind of difficult to get past it when she's like, I wear my uniform like any officer, like any other, actually says any other officer in the military would wear their uniform. I'm like,
yeah,
but you're not really an officer in the military.
no.
I mean, I get it, but that's you're a little bit far out there.
Yeah, that's where she loses me too. She earned her rank. Brian says.
Yeah, I told Brian, I was like, she has look, and he's like, she wants to call herself she has earned. I'm like, oh yeah, I mean, she has hours of watching that have allowed her to earn. She didn't have training; she just had watching.
Yeah.
I watched it a lot.
Yeah, it's funny because when you watch the sequel, again, you get that sanctimonious crowd, and there are a lot of people that are like, "Oh, going to do jury duty in your Star Trek uniform, I think that's crazy." Whereas for me, I feel like that's the area where I'm like the least offended. I think that the only thing that really made me cringe was when she compared herself to being an actual military member, where you're kind of like, "Oh man, my whichever relative, insert relative name here, or even for people who actually did fight, you're kind of like, ugh, that kind of, it kind of is a little bit rough. But, the fact that she wore her uniform during the Clinton Whitewater trial thing, I don't think is the worst thing in the world. I think, in that situation, she's not harming anybody. And I think that's what's important is, it's when the fandom starts to harm other people. When I go to, Jen and I are looking to go to a baseball game, the opening day baseball game. It's Phillies and Red Sox. Chances are if I go in my Red Sox gear, somebody's going to hurt me. Somebody, if I wear my Red Sox shirt to the bathroom, I've got to keep my, eyes on the back of my head. And it's probably even worse.
You should take a second jersey to slip on.
Well, I'm going to. That's my plan.
Through the crowd.
Right, that's my plan. But it'd be even worse going as a Philly fan to Boston, because Boston fans I think are even worse, which is, people don't realize that. But I think that what do I want to say? I think that's, I don't think Star Trek fans, maybe if you're not careful when the Klingons are doing the whole dance thing with the swords and one of them just accidentally whacks you, if you don't keep a good 10 feet distance from them, that could hurt you. But I don't think the Star Trek fans, even if they're doing the whole Trekkie thing, they're not going to fight each other over that. And I think, that's the one area of sports fandom where it just gets to be so, so crazy that people will fight you over things. They'll, the things that I have heard sports radio guys in Boston called for saying that it's possible that Bill Belichick cheated. It's possible that Bill Belichick, wanted to deflate the balls. The fights that happened there because of that, the things that people said to him on the radio, I don't think you'd get Trekkies saying that if you said that, I think Shatner was a better captain than Picard.
I've never seen anyone come to blows over comments like that, but I don't usually surround myself with. I don't know. I mean, I've never been to a Star Trek convention. They could get ugly. I have no idea.
Yes.
I doubt it, though. I mean, I think that there tends to be more animosity between Star Trek fans and Star Wars fans.
Yes.
But maybe not between the different levels of Star fan. I don't know.
Yeah.
If there's anybody out there who's deeply involved in that.
Yeah.
Okay, Eric says he's been to one years ago. Never again.
Convention.
Yeah.
Now, who did you dress up as? Was it Borg? How long ago was it? Was it pre-Borg?
Yes, I guess as in it was pre. None. Oh, he did. It was in the 80s.
Oh, it was in the 80s, so it was pre Next Generation, so pre-Borg. Yeah.
Well, what was so bad about it in the 80s then? I mean, you only had the one, well, I guess in the movies.
Yeah, you had a few movies, right?
But I can't imagine what would have been so bad about it back then. But then Gary says it's a generational thing. Picard was captain, and not that he doesn't care about Shatner. But, I am not that much older than Gary, and Shatner was my captain, not so much with the Picard. I didn't really care about the new ones when they came out, though. I never watched them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And like Brian, he doesn't actually watch Star Trek. This is so weird. He doesn't watch Star Trek, but he loves Trekkies, the movies here. And there's a podcast that he listens to that all they do is talk about Star Trek. And he doesn't watch the show, but he gets a kick out of them talking about the series, which I think is kind of funny.
Oh, like Talk Trek, right? Like the radio show.
Oh, with the ladies.
Yes, yes.
Oh, wow.
Did they ever have Tasha Yar on? Denise Crosby, is she ever on there? Brian, do you ever get a chance to talk? You can call in and explain what your favorite Tasha Yar episode was.
He says he likes Star Trek at a distance.
At a distance. like Bette Midler style, right? Bette Midler from a distance.
But let's talk about some of these fans here. There's Adamant.
Yep, Adamant.
What is
yes.
his actual name? What's his
Gabe.
name?
Gabe.
Gabe.
Yep.
Okay.
So he's 14 at
He
the time.
seems like a really sweet kid, and well, of course he's not a kid anymore. But
yes.
He really did seem like a really sweet kid. But there was a statement he made at the end of the film that just cracked me up to no end. And he said, because he was talking about his experience going to that convention, and he was like, I went to this convention. It was wonderful because I got to meet some of my favorite Star Trek, actors, and got their signature, and then I got to meet other fans who. And he's like, I love these people because they know how to put Star Trek in the context of the rest of their lives.
Right.
Really?
Yes, we love that.
You call these people balanced?
Yes.
Because, and I'm not talking about the people who dress up, because that can be fun, But I'm talking about the people who live it all the time. Like the guy who had his ears surgically altered so that he could look more like a Vulcan.
Mm-hmm.
And the one man who said, well, I would consider that, and his wife,
yes.
the look on her face.
Oh my God, isn't that great?
Oh. Yes. Like, no, you're not.
Yes.
Or the dentist. I mean, have you ever been to a dentist's office where everyone was dressed like Star Trek people? I don't know.
I know. I can only imagine that. I can only, talking about Gabe. If you watch the sequel, he's 21 in the sequel, and he's married. So they kind of poke fun at the fact that the running joke about him was that he was never going to get laid, and his wife says, "Well, I can tell you for a fact that that's not true, that he does." But but he also pokes fun at all of his bad lines as well, which is good because he explains that he words like ple-THOR-a and de-bah-cle, he only read them. He'd never actually heard them said before. So he was just going with his best guess for how they were pronounced.
Well, and that's Mm-hmm. Eric says, when you see a guy dressed as a crew member of the Romulan ship looking at a table full of crew, and he says, "Oh, my commander's looking for this one. It's time to go."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's what that one was like for him. Did he get a chance to try the Romulan ale? Crazy nights at the.
He probably wish he could after that.
I have never been to a Star Trek convention either, and I guess this probably, you talk about sports being kind of this dominant thing as far as fandom. I always talk about what baseball parks I've been to. I think of like different sporting events as like milestones. Like, I got to see an Eastern Conference Finals Celtics game in '08. I saw a no-hitter, a baseball game I went to was a no-hitter. Wow. So you see those things, but going to a Star Trek convention, I kind of feel like would be up there. I mean, my Petrowski and I would occasionally go to like small little comic book things where we would just go around and I would watch him try to barter with some guy similar to the guy with the curly hair and the rosy red cheeks trading the figures.
Goodness.
He would occasionally do that bartering. It's the actual convention. I know some of my friends have been to the big deals. And I've always wanted to check one out. They keep showing the Bayside Expo in Boston, which is where I grew up, and I knew my friends went to some of those. So I don't know if maybe they saw the commander at one of them and didn't even know who it was. But you think about like something like that. I know friends who go to Comic-Con out in San Diego every year, but this, a Star Trek convention, like a big deal one, I think that's got to be up there as an event. But I don't know. Do you think it would get tiring? How long would it take to get tiring?
You mean that one day?
That one day, just the.
Wouldn't take me very long, I imagine. But see, I'm not that devoted. If it was something, Eric says 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
I mean, if it was something, take for instance, if it was a horror convention, I could spend days doing horror stuff. But I don't see me being in a Star Trek convention for more than say a few hours.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't see like getting like a weekend pass. But well, Gary says you've got to shop on Sunday because you can haggle better because they don't want to go home with that shit.
Yes.
And that's true of any convention or any like whether it's an artist's convention like any kind of weekend festival that you go to where you have artists with booths. It's always best to go on Sunday if you want good prices because nobody wants to take that shit home. They want to make money.
Yeah.
So I guess if you had one day to go, then Sunday may be the day. And you wanted to do some shopping, then Sunday would be the day to do it. He says he got to meet William Shatner, Brent Spiner, whom I get the impression is a very nice guy. LeVar Burton, too. Even Denise Crosby.
Now Brent Spiner, is he a Spiner femme?
Yeah. Maybe he's Spiner man.
We always call each other Spiner Femmes. That was another comment. Like that was a big thing too, is to find movies and TV shows that had Brent Spiner in them. Which one of my favorites is The Aviator. Have you ever seen that movie? The Scorsese.
One with DiCaprio?
Yes. Do you remember Brent Spiner's scene where he's there with DiCaprio as Howard Hughes, and he's trying to sell him, I think, he's trying to sell him on a model for a plane that they have that they want to build, and Howard Hughes loses his mind because he's got a piece of fluff on his shirt, on the lapel of his coat, and so he's telling Brent Spiner. I'm pretty sure this is Brent Spiner's scene, where he makes him pick the lint off his coat and throw it off. But maybe I'm wrong.
Now no, you could be right. I remember nothing. I remember nothing about that. I know it did see it, but I somehow have I remember nothing about it.
Yeah,
I don't know what that says.
Yeah, Jen and I were talking about this aspect too. Now, you think of us all. Maybe we do have fandoms of certain actors or actresses. And I have a feeling that perhaps this Spiner femme in the film, perhaps she was a fan of Spiner before she got married and had children, so that her husband knew, like, hey, there's this guy that I love. But the thing about like the Spiner breaks and things like that, like for me, I wonder, like, if there's a point where as a husband you start to feel like, okay, I'm your husband, what happened here?
Isn't that kind of weird? I'm gonna pop out to the balcony for a Brent break.
A Brent break, that's what it was.
You realize her Brent break consists of her standing on her balcony and staring off into the distance to the vicinity of where Brent Spiner lives. Mm-hmm. She can see the top of the hill on which he lives at the bottom. And that calms her.
Yeah.
That's as her husband, I might think that was weird. I don't know. I'm not involved. We don't have, like, neither of us have one of those, in this household.
Yeah.
I don't know how you and Jen were, if maybe you need to take, like, a Kelly break.
Yes. Yes. I stare from the distance of, it would be Kelly or 90210. Yeah, one of those. Yeah, you got to take a 90210 break. What are some other ones that we could think of? Yeah, that we could make up for each other. I know musicians. Some of the musicians Jen's like, she wants to take a, because they're some of them are here in Philly. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, man, yeah, there. It just seems like it would, what would Jen do? Would she buy me, or would I buy her gifts that involve this person? Like, oh, Jen, I was at a thrift store and I saw a magazine that had this, Brent Spiner in it. Here, I'm going to keep feeding into this, man that you would leave me for in a heartbeat if he ever... Yeah. So, that was something that I still have never been able to fully rectify. Like, I think that's where you go with these things, where it's like, is it negatively affecting your life? And we don't know. Maybe it isn't. Maybe her and her husband have a good setup there where the Spiner thing is just taken in stride.
Probably. I imagine that it's something that they probably about it together. I mean, I imagine if he's been around for a while, he's used to it. I don't know. But I do think that you can have an unhealthy obsession with things to the point where they disrupt your life. I mean, we've all seen that happen. Next thing you know, you're, chasing Foster around.
Yes.
Or trying to break into Kevin Bacon's house, or it does get.
Yeah, and I guess that's where I mean, she says she bought him presents. She's like, oh, I buy presents for my friends all the time. I figure why not buy them for him? But he's kind of not your friend. He did,
Right.
Friend is a two-way street, unfortunately.
He kind of doesn't know who you are.
Right.
And he takes that in stride, and he says that over years at conventions, he's made it clear that he doesn't want people spending money on him. He's like, I do okay. You'd be better off spending money on yourself. Right. And that's a nice way to put it, but I kind of wonder if what he wants to say is, quit it, you're creeping me out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't actually know you. And I have friends who started out as listeners or fellow podcasters, and then we've become friends. And they send me stuff. I got really cool stuff from my friends, and I love it. I absolutely love. I have signed posters or buttons, pictures that people see when they're at a convention, or my listeners sent me. And I love this stuff because they see it and they think of me, and they're like, oh, Jamie would really like this. So they send it to me, and I think it's really sweet and wonderful. But I do have a friendly relationship with these people. I actually know these people. And so it's not creepy because they're my friends. But, I don't know. I mean, I guess if I was him and someone wanted to send, like, say if they send like a drawing that they did of you or something like that, I think that stuff is fine and it wouldn't bother me at all if I were in his situation. But sometimes some of the gifts that people send these people are kind of extravagant or kind of personal. And if you don't know them, then that could be weird.
Yeah.
And if they get flooded with them, like, when Denise Crosby took us to her little storage area and all the stuff that she's gotten, and I'm sure she appreciates it all, but like some of it's kind of weird, like the drawn love scenes that people did, I don't know how I would feel about that.
Yeah.
If I were,
I know. I was going to say, yeah, because I mean, I remember that episode, and that's kind of the funny thing too. Is you when you're an actor, I think you do something in an episode that that was an episode. Who knows what the deal was with that one? If I remember, it was kind of a one-off situation where I think some sort of power had taken over the ship and made everybody more amorous, so to speak.
Well, I think I just heard that episode being discussed on one of the podcasts that Brian listens to.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, it somehow became a very famous one, but at the time I think it was always one of those kind of throwaway things where they needed an extra episode in that season. But it just became this big thing, and the whole deal with Tasha Yar and Data having sex, I think it was supposed to be a goofy thing to have happen, kind of a like, oh man, if we weren't overtaken by this power, this wouldn't have happened. Kind of like we're uncomfortable with each other after the fact, and it turned into this big thing. And one thing I've always remembered is I used to watch the Highlander TV series, and I don't know if you've
the one.
Yes, I love that show, and
I'm just kidding. I love Highlander, but I never could get into the TV show.
Oh my God, I love the So I remember Peter Wingfield, who played Mythos, who's kind of like this guy who had been alive so long he didn't remember how old he was. But he, I can't remember if Duncan's character, Adrian Paul, if he was married or something like that. But Mythos makes a crack that he had like 60-something wives or something like that. Like, oh, I've been married 60 times or something like that. And he didn't, it was just a throwaway joke line for the episode. And he said he goes to conventions and women show up and they're like, I'm wife number 34 or something, and they'll be dressed up in some kind of period garb.
Wow.
And it's just one of those things. And I think that's the same thing. I mean, I remember that sketch on Saturday Night Live.
What if two show up that claim to be wife number 34?
That's
obviously just arbitrary number picking here. Do they get into a brawl
you
then? I'm 34. No, I'm 34. He just didn't know about me.
I think it's a temporal thing, right? Like, you better hope you're not in the same part of the convention at the same time, because you might explode when you touch each other.
I think, when do you cross the line from being humorous and engaging and funny, just having a good time, into being flat weird?
Yeah.
It's a fine line, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But I think one of the examples is the gentleman who started out dressing up as a NASA pilot.
Right. Yes.
That got killed on a mission that they were then investigating on one of the episodes of Star Trek, and then morphed that into dressing up as the wife of that character,
Mm-hmm.
which makes no sense at all to me.
No, it just went for it.
I mean, I think that right there might be the point where you cross that very fine line. And and wearing this really long brown curly wig, full makeup with like NASA on it. And I'm like, do you think the guy's wife walks around in a NASA shirt? I don't know.
Yeah, it's like
But otherwise, how would anyone know who you were? So I guess that's why.
yeah, and it's funny when you watch the sequel, like they take a lot of umbrage. The Trekkers or the Sanctimonious crowd take a lot of umbrage with them showing that guy because they felt like it was, I don't know. I think they felt like him and the commander got them all a lot of wedgies,
Right.
and a lot of swirlies as a result of.
I was stuffed in lockers because of you assholes.
And I'd been out of high school
Okay,
for
so
15 years.
they do not support that.
No. They were tossed into lockers at work in their 30s because of that scene. The way they talk about it makes it sound like that. That's how they feel. And when you get to the second one, but again, yeah, I know what you mean. Like you kind of wonder, like we can't see Tasha Yar on the other side. You can kind of see her just by listening to the way she responds. Like, go ahead, sing the song for us. Yeah, let's hear it. And it kind of seems like she's just kind of going with it as best she can. But you're wondering too, like the director, is he just thinking like, I've got gold here? It's like Rumpelstiltskin just spinning this gold for me here. Just keep it going. But yeah, I don't know. It was you're right. I think the commander, you could do 10 minutes with the commander hanging out with her and be okay. Then it's after that. Like if you shared a meal with the commander, it would start to get to be a little much maybe. Whereas that
Well,
guy,
I would get kind of tired of having to call her the commander.
yeah,
I guess. Although, like I said, she seems like a genuinely nice,
she does.
good-hearted, really awesome person. And she's not hurting
Yeah.
anyone. Just by wearing her uniform or whatever. I think she takes it a little bit too seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Earlier, when she's referring to herself in the same sentence as actual military people.
Yes.
That could be insulting. But I don't think she means it that way. She clearly doesn't mean it that way. She's just very dedicated, and she sees herself as dedicated as any other, to quote her military personnel. But I don't know. Like I seems like the kind of person that would be fun to talk to for the novelty of it for a little while.
Yeah.
But then it's like fun, or like maybe go to a convention with her. She might be able to make it fun. But then later on, wanting to kick a movie, I don't see like, hey, Commander, can you get some popcorn while you're in there? I mean, that's a little much.
No, she's not kicking back to watch. Yeah, I mean,
well, she's not, because as Commander, she has duties. She has things that she needs to take care of. She doesn't have time for that crap.
Yeah, she's a Starfleet officer 24 hours a day.
Is she in the sequel?
She is. They kind of touch base with her again, and they talk about. I mean, she becomes like a celebrity in the mid 2000s, where she would go to these conventions and sign autographs. Everybody loved her.
Well, see, that's so weird too. That you start out as a fan, and you're such a fan that you're kind of a crazy fan, and then you end up kind of having fans of your own, just for being a fan.
Yeah.
It's I don't know. I mean, it's yeah, whatever.
You have to go that next step. You have to, and they keep saying one of the ones they always say is they talk about wearing the uniform, and she wore the uniform to jury duty, and they always say, well, it's okay to wear a football uniform, and it's like, no, you're just putting a jersey on that looks pretty much like a regular shirt. If you went dressed up in shoulder pads, a helmet, and cleats to go do jury duty, people would think that's even crazier than what you're doing. But they would think that's kind of weird too. I mean, if you actually dress up in the whole thing, it's not like you're just wearing a Star Trek shirt to go hang out and watch.
No, she's got like her phaser. Did they take that away from her at security?
No, it's plastic.
Did she have to go there?
I think it's plastic. You wand it and it's okay.
It's all right. So she wears it straight through the metal.
Yeah.
And she's in court with her phaser. Every single day she wears her communication thingy and her. I don't know the name of the stuff because I'm not into it, but you know what I mean, the insignias. But that is so funny because I was just to bring that up the football thing, and what she said, she's like, well, people don't think of you wearing football uniform. Yes, they fucking do.
Yes.
People don't walk around in full-blown football uniforms going to the grocery store.
Right.
You just don't see it, and
right.
There's a reason for for that.
Yes.
It stays on the field. It's for the field. That's what it's for. Your uniform is for. I don't know what that uniform is for. I don't know what
Exactly.
the appropriate time to wear that would be during a meeting, I guess. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, Gary says he thinks Homeland Security might have a problem with the commander, and I have to agree with that.
Yes.
I think that, yeah. But yeah, this is not the same. It is not the same thing. You don't see people just bouncing around and cheerleader. All right, well, I guess sometimes.
You do sometimes, but
In a college town especially,
Yes.
you would see that.
Yes.
But hell, people wear pajamas to the grocery stores in college towns, so those don't count.
No.
But I don't know. It's just it's not the same.
No.
It is not the same.
Well, and I also would make the point too. Like, I have like a huge collection of old basketball jerseys, like the champion ones from the mid '90s. Just a collection of them. I used to wear them when I was younger. But if I wore one of those out, unless I was going to a actual game and maybe wanted to wear it for fun, wear it like an old player that nobody talks about anymore, which I do that sometimes. But if I would just go into the store, as a 35-year-old man wearing the jersey of somebody who's 15 years younger than me, I mean, I think there's a point too as an adult where it's whether it's wearing the Star Trek uniform or even wearing a jersey, you've reached a certain age where it's like, people will look at you a little bit like, okay, you need to grow up. You need to, as an adult. So I don't think even that is a straight. I mean, there is a little more acceptance of us wearing the basketball, the jersey top, maybe just the jersey top, but it's not a straight comparison either, because like you said, the whole uniform, the whole football uniform.
You're not gonna wear the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar goggles and the
Right, exactly, the knee-high socks and maybe even the, I mean. It's that's the thing. It's like if I went out there dressed like that with the goggles and the shorts and the shirt and the pant, people would look at me as funny, maybe even more so, because that's more conspicuous than the Star Trek uniform. Like, the Star Trek uniform blends a little bit more because it's pants, it's a shirt. You got to kind of look at it a couple times before you realize, like, that's what I'm seeing,
And people who don't know Star Trek may not even realize it's anything.
Right.
It could be a fast food restaurant uniform.
Yeah.
But I guess, okay, well, then there's the fact that she has do what she wants to do and wear what she wants to wear, and so be it. Either you deal with it or you don't. I mean, and I kind of have to respect that.
Right.
I don't want to dictate to people what they can and can't wear, day in or day out. I don't want someone doing that to me.
Right.
I also don't ask them to call me things like commander. I think that, I don't know, there are degrees. And not living. As we're watching this, I'm looking around our house, and I'm like, Brian, are we weird? Because I'm looking around, and there's a thing poster and a April Fool's Day poster and a Return of the Living Dead poster, and then the In Case of Zombies Break Glass box that we made.
Mm-hmm.
I look behind us, there are figurines, and there's a Jason mask, and all of this stuff is incorporated into our daily. This is how we live. This stuff is everywhere in our home, in every room, just about. And I'm like, is this weird? And he's like, baby, no. He's like, there's a big difference. I'm like, yeah, I guess you're right. I mean, do have stuff around that we love and appreciate, but then at the same time, we don't go, he doesn't run down to the store dressed as Chucky, or, well, that's a bad example because he's not a big Child's Play fan so much to that point anyway, but he doesn't run around in a Jason mask.
Well, that's it. Right, yes, like that's I think maybe that's the equivalent, is being like, oh, what, I'm wearing the Jason mask. It's the same as wearing your favorite team's baseball cap when you go to the store. And it's like, no, it's a Jason mask. Of course, the Jason mask is a little scarier, but yeah, I mean, and I think
I say that, and then he did give me for Christmas for the what do you call them? The ski mask.
Mm-hmm.
It's a ski mask with a hockey mask painted on the front, and I did actually wear that out when we went walking in the snow one day. So there's that.
Well, you got to keep warm. Or
I just walked around the block, and it was, and it's fun and it's funny and it's not, but I don't also don't walk around wearing that while yielding a machete and tell people that they best call me Jason.
Yes, my rank is Jason. You know, I'm Jason 24 hours a day. That's part of the Jason credo. Um, it's necessary for me to terrorize kids at a local lake, but we do a lot of charity work as well. We raise money for the kids that we're terrorizing.
Community service
We do
is very important.
Yes. Then they go to Kinko's, right, or wherever it was.
Friday night get together and we help the Marines out with toys for tots.
Right, exactly.
Because wearing our uniforms is the same as any other military.
Exactly. Yeah, the sweater, hockey mask, and machete. It's the same as and so we'll go to Kinko's and interview people who work with me. Yeah, Matt, Jason's really great. I remember I said to him one time, I was like, "Hey, bro, how you doing?" And he looked at me kind of funny, like he didn't think it was appropriate to call him bro. And I said, "Well, what would you like to be called?" And he said, "Well, my rank is Jason." So we decided to call him Jason.
Okay, now if you just started working with this woman, if you just went into her place of business and you got a job there and you're going in there, you're meeting people.
Yeah.
And you refer to her as, I think she said what she referred to her as was girlfriend.
Girlfriend.
And she said, I really don't like, you calling me that. And she said, well, what would you prefer that I call you? And she said, well, my rank is commander. Would you your response be? I mean, like, your rank?
Yeah.
Your rank in what?
Yes.
I think my jaw would just sort of hang open a little bit, and I would just say, "Well, too fucking bad, Bobby."
Yes. Well, I was going to say her name's Barbara, so I was going to think Babs too. Like I've always wanted to work with a Babs, so I would call her Babs whether she liked it or not. So that's probably.
That's hilarious. No, I've always wanted to work with a Babs. So you're Babs.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to deal with that.
Yes, exactly. Sorry, Commander, you're Babs to me.
I am not calling you and her bosses call her commander.
Yeah.
I'm like, you really expect your bosses to refer to you? I mean, and I guess they seem to get a kick out of it, or they think it's funny, or whatever. And if you do, then that's fine. But I would call me commander.
Yeah. I mean, I think in Little Rock, as long as you go to church or something, I don't know what the deal is as far as how accepting, but they seem pretty. You'd think Little Rock, you'd feel like someone like the commander would get snuffed out down there, but
oh yeah, she's gonna stick out.
Yeah.
Brian says that's just enabling someone's crazy.
Well, that too.
Here he says his rank is Buckaroo Banzai.
I saw that. I like that. I like that. What was I? I was thinking about Peter Weller today. I can't remember why.
I was too, but we were watching a clip and clip from RoboCop came out.
Oh, okay.
And it was what it was. It was watching Watch Mojo, and it was the top 10 worst practical effects in movies. And one of them was the flappy arm guy, in RoboCop, as the guy pushed out the window and his arms get really long.
Yes, that's right. That's right. RoboCop had some great ones. Wait, it's too bad we never had a RoboCop convention. RoboCop conventions and a huge,
Everyone would be one character.
Yeah. You could be Kurtwood Smith's character, or Miguel Ferrer. I mean, I guess everybody's dead at that point. You have to try to bring them back to life, you could see me.
There has been a RoboCop at a convention somewhere. Probably a lot of them, especially since we've had the remake. I've had a bunch of people.
Right.
We're doing RoboCop.
Yeah.
I was having a discussion, Alien versus Aliens.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a huge Alien fan. I think it's one of the best horror films ever made.
Mm-hmm.
Aliens, no horror, so it makes me mad that they just went away from the horror aspect of it. And I'm not a big James Cameron fan anyway. But so I'm having this conversation, and this other person says Aliens is a better film. And I said, well, why? Why do you think Aliens is a better film? Well, because if you go to a convention, you're going to see more people. You're going to see more people than you are Alien. Like, since geeks do on weekends define whether or not a film is good or
right.
Rule. And it's personal, he loves Aliens, I love it. In your opinion, that's the definition of the word. But I just thought that was a hilarious argument. It's like, well, it's better because, damn it, that's what geeks like to dress up as.
You think about literature, novels, right, and books. Well, obviously 50 Shades of Grey has to be one of the defining pieces of literature of our generation. It has to be one of the greatest books ever written. Because, I mean, everybody likes it. Everybody, so many people have bought it. It was turned into a successful movie. It has to be better quality than the new Toni Morrison book that just came out, or the new Kazuo Ishiguro book. That I mean, it has to be better than what Toni Morrison's putting out there with her Nobel Prize.
Money. Right.
Exactly. Nobody's buying her.
Better.
Yeah. I mean, now that Oprah doesn't have a talk show, nobody's buying Toni Morrison's book. But 50 Shades of Grey, that's, because, as we said, whatever's more popular is better.
And yeah, Gary's like, yeah, that would be Wildman Willis. And yes, that is exactly who I was talking about. I was talking about Willis. He is a fellow podcaster and a friend, and we joke with each other about that whole thing. It's like a big ongoing gag, but that to me was just a hilarious argument.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, maybe that's, it's funny, we were talking about RoboCop. I figured when they're doing the Robies, is that what we would be called? Robies? For RoboCop fans?
Not bad, yeah.
Yeah, so when they do the documentary about us, I'll be dressed up as one of the bitches who was asked to leave by Kurtwood Smith. So Matt, who are you dressed up as? I'm one of the bitches that was asked to leave. I've got my leather dress here, my makeup, I've got my Coke straw here. Yeah, I've recently got into filking, science fiction folk singing. Yeah.
When you want to hear, I can give you an example.
God,
please, I live for the moment.
I don't know if I can think of a science fiction folk song off the top of my head.
I'm gonna wear a suit and add my arms, and then I'm just gonna walk around flapping them around.
You're gonna be the flappy arm guy. Yeah, what would be a good science fiction folk song is one about explaining why Jean-Luc Picard had a English accent. My theory was always that sometime in the future, France and England switch countries. They trade countries. So
maybe for this one, had an English accent, which I failed to understand in the series Rome. I mean,
yeah.
I'm like, what is that?
Yeah,
where are they getting that?
we Americans just seem to accept that anybody at any time could have an English accent.
Yeah, well, and I think that's what it boils down to. They're American. They expect that anyone from a different time or a different station in life, like if they're rich, then they automatically have, and old and rich, then they automatically have an English accent.
Yeah.
If they come from a different period of time, they automatically have an English accent. That's the way it works. Meanwhile, the English are going, what?
Yes, yes, I know. You thought this guy? You thought Alan Rickman was a German? Yes, we did. Hans Gruber. Yeah. He was a great German, too. And then his brother, Jeremy Irons, another fantastic German. We loved it. And Sean Connery, he can be anything we want him to be. And he's a Scotsman, of course, but...
Yes, I was just about to say that Sean Connery will be an Egyptian.
Yeah.
He will be an Egyptian with a Scottish accent, because why not? A Spanish Egyptian.
I was going to say Spaniard Egyptian, yeah. Yeah, a Russian. He played a good Russian as well.
But oddly, when he tries to do the Scotsman, he can't do it.
No, not a good Scotsman. I'm a horrible Scotsman. Do you remember
And I didn't know James was, but apparently he was.
Well, who was?
James Bond.
James Bond, yes.
At least for that period of time.
He was yeah. Oh, yes, he had to, yes. I still live under the Queen. I've got to be a Scotsman and a James Bondsman.
Mother said last night, Trebek.
I know. Yes. I was thinking about that. I was also thinking of Conan O'Brien when he would do Sean Connery prank phone calls. And he's like, calls somebody and he's like, "Hello, is your refrigerator running?" And the person's like, "No." And he's like, "You're an idiot." And that's like, and it's like this Connery face would blast up on the screen. "You're an idiot."
Oh, Gary says Irish and the Untouchables.
That's right. He was an Irishman. Yeah, he was an Irishman. He was a great Irishman. I really enjoyed it. And it was. He can be any country you'd want him to be from.
Well, he's Sean fucking Connery. He can do whatever he wants.
Yeah, I'll give him that leeway. It's my position, my ability. I have the ability to grant him that because I'm the one that matters when it comes to that.
Oh, is it? Well, good. I'll
Yes,
keep that in mind for
right.
future. uh,
Exactly. Oh man.
Trekkies.
I know. Speaking of the devil, speak of the devil,
Wait, real
Trekkies.
quick. You know what I just learned tonight? I learned this tonight is that because sadly Leonard Nimoy died.
Mm-hmm.
I just learned that Shatner's apparently not going to his funeral.
What?
His reasoning for that is that he could not get a flight.
The Priceline guy.
And that's exactly what I said. I'm like, you're going to tell me that the Priceline guy can't get a flight? I think I would probably come up with a better one than that.
Shatner, come on, buddy.
It makes me sad. It makes me sad.
Did they not get along at the end there or something?
I know that he and George Takei are the best of friends. I don't know about Leonard Nimoy. I really don't know anything about their relationship, or I doubt they had one, but I don't think it was bad. I really don't know. But it kind of makes me sad. And it's really not even, like, if you don't want to go to his funeral for whatever reason, like, I guess you have your reasons, I wouldn't give that as an excuse. Not when I am the spokesman for fucking Priceline.
Yeah.
I think I would have said something else. Even if that were the truth, which I don't think it is, but even if that were the truth, I would have said something else.
Well, what does that tell us about Priceline? If we'd ever use that. If Shatner's not even going to use it to go to Nimoy's funeral, and he can't even use it to get a flight to Nimoy's funeral, then why should we bother with using Priceline? We'll just go right through the airline,
Just lost that sponsorship.
Yeah. I didn't know that. That's too bad. I know Takai has been a little bit reserved, I think, just because he, I think he's mourning the deaths. I know he hasn't said a lot, but man, that's kind of, but maybe it gives you an idea because, you notice in the new movies, Spock, Nimoy was in the new movies and Shatner wasn't.
I think Shatner's always been too good.
Yeah.
For stuff like this. I mean, he rarely shows up in documentaries. I mean, you saw him, like, how many times have we seen? Like, once, twice?
Yeah.
In Trek, because he's never at the conventions. Mm-hmm. Like, he doesn't. And I used to work with a woman who, back when she lived in Livermore in California, she used to help set up Star Trek conventions. And this is way back when. This is like in the 70s. And she told me she always had a wonderful time dealing with Leonard Nimoy and George Takei. He was her favorite. The only one that ever gave her any problem was William Shatner.
Yeah, makes sense.
And, I have to say that I have never heard anyone have say, oh my God, I just had the most wonderful experience with William Shatner. It's just, I don't ever hear that. I have another friend who grew up in Chicago, and she was, she used to jump horses, and she was running her horse on the field. And Shatner's a big horse lover, and he had horse at the same stable. And she's like, every time she ran into him, he was just an ass.
Yeah.
He wouldn't follow the rules about the way you're supposed to conduct yourself. He just did whatever he wanted. And she's like, the first time she had a run-in with him, she was a kid, and she didn't know who he was, and she mouthed off at him, and her brother's like, that's William Shatner, and she's like, I don't give a shit.
Right, yes.
I don't care who he is. He's an asshole.
Oh, my God. That makes sense, though, like, he's very, like, I mean, that's what I've heard, too. I mean, with the movie, well, this is my favorite all-time.
Eric's back.
Oh, is he? Look at that. I saw somebody pop in there.
He says he's quite sure those praises for the Shat have never been uttered, and so am I. And then Gary says it was kind of a blah experience, which I can imagine, because I just don't see him being very enthusiastic about it. Because I don't see him really damn.
Yeah, my favorite story about Shatner that I remember was, do you remember the Generations movie that had Malcolm McDowell in it?
I don't think I saw that.
So that was the movie that was sort of the bridge between the old series and the Next Generation, when they started making Next Generation movies. So it had both casts together, and Shatner, essentially, it's the film where Kirk dies. They kind of kill Kirk off, and so that allows sort of the passing of the torch over to Picard to do the Next Generation movies. But at the same time, I guess Shatner was writing some sort of biography, so he's walking around with this tape recorder interviewing people. And so there's the scene shot where Malcolm McDowell's character kills Kirk. He kills Captain Kirk. So that's it. Captain Kirk is dead. So they cut the scene, they end the scene, and Shatner walks up to him with the microphone and his little tape recorder, and he goes, "You have just killed an American icon. How do you feel?" And so, of course, Malcolm McDowell's relaying this information on Conan O'Brien while he's being interviewed for the film, and everybody's dying laughing because it's so Shatner to say that. I think it kind of sums him up. That's what Shatner would do. He would, his character was an American icon, and he's going to let everybody know it. Where, I think when people think Star Trek, like you said, they think of Nimoy and the pointed ears, and maybe that's part of where some of the animosity comes from, because I feel like Nimoy never would have cared if everybody thought Kirk was the big guy from Star Trek, whereas I think in Shatner's case, he's like, me, what about me, and everybody just sees the ears and they see the Vulcan,
which is interesting, because if he had more enthusiasm about his fans and about the Star Trek universe, maybe he had more of a presence in people's minds. I think he kind of did it to himself.
Yeah.
But he had more important things to do. He had to go and off and make Kingdom of the Spiders.
Mm-hmm.
That was phenomenal. And I actually love that movie. But I mean, that's what he was doing.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Now, Beefy.
I'm so sorry you couldn't take time out from your B movie schedule.
Exactly. Beefy Beard said, "Isn't he Canadian?" I remember in the '90s, Craig Kilborn, when he used to be on ESPN for like a week of Shatner's birthday, he would just do this whole thing, because the first time he wished Shatner happy birthday, he put his picture on the screen and said, happy birthday to Shatner. And then the rest of the week, whenever something from Canada would be brought up, he would go, also from Canada is William Shatner. They talk about the Toronto Blue Jays, and the Blue Jays scored tonight. Also from Canada is William Shatner. And so that was his whole week. That was before he was on the Daily Show. But that's how I always remembered that Shatner was Canadian.
Wow.
Yeah.
Brian calls him the ego that roared.
Yeah.
Eric says he's going to be like Clayton Moore with the Lone Ranger mask.
Mm-hmm.
But I used to love Lone Ranger when I was a kid. I had a huge crush on the Lone Ranger.
Mm-hmm.
There's something about masks. I don't know what that is, but it's kind of weird. But ever since I was a kid, but I don't know if I know what was he weird? Was he? Oh, did he? He actually used to wear it all the time.
I think so. Yeah.
After the show, even after the show was canceled, didn't he walk around wearing the mask all the time or something?
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, they joke about it on Autofocus, because Bob Crane was doing a radio show before he was on Hogan's Heroes, and they were interviewing the Lone Ranger on there, and he joked about how we're going to take, he's going to take his mask off for us all to see. And of course, he never had the mask on while he was in the studio. Yeah, so
he wanted to be buried wearing it.
Yeah. Oh. Well, I guess we're kind of getting closer. We've already crossed the 9 o'clock threshold here. So
I know, it's just I am having such a good time.
I know, we just kind of cruised through this one. I mean, I think we already discussed it at the very beginning, but I think we're both giving this one big thumbs up, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, like I said, I don't think you even have to be a fan of Star Trek to find it entertaining, because it's just super entertaining to see these people. And even if at first I was like, I don't want I had to get basically tricked into watching it, but once I did, I was totally happy about it, because it's fun to just see. These are the kind of things that you would never know about unless you go to these things without this documentary.
Right. So
this sort of gives you an inside look at what these people are like, and it's kind of fascinating.
Yeah. No, I know. For me, it was the same thing. It was, I never knew.
I'm sorry, Eric says he's sure Shatner will be wanting to wear his captain's uniform in his coffin, but I think we have to fight over that with the commander.
Yeah, the commander's going to take it from him. Exactly. Oh man. So yeah, I think you summed it up perfectly. This is not just a film for sci-fi fans. It's not just a film for Star Trek fans. It's a film for people that it's a good documentary, and it's I think it's a fascinating film about a certain subculture here in the United States that, like you said, you're not going to get that kind of exposure to unless you really get in deep in the conventions.
Yeah. So yeah, I'd give it a watch, definitely. And it's on Netflix, so it won't hurt you. And then there's the second one, which I'm looking forward to watch.
Sequel's right there. Give it a watch. Yeah, 3 hours. You're in and out. Both hour and a half. They're both inside my window, so they're also good times. Yeah. All right. Well, Jamie, let's talk about what have we got going on here, Jamie. What I know last night you weren't able to make the Insomniacs playlist, but what else have you got going on?
I didn't make it last night, and I was actually going to do it tonight, like I did last week when I did the double dip on this show on the network, but time got away from me as far as prepping the show. And then I was like, well, I'll just push it to tomorrow night. Well, then it turns out that I can't do that because we're actually recording a new Devour the Podcast tomorrow night, which
nice.
hasn't happened in ages. So we're going to be picking back up with the Friday Retro and talking about Friday 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. And we're also going to be talking about Antiviral, the film that was made by Cronenberg's son, Scott? I can't remember. David Cronenberg's son, but I can't remember. Scott Cronenberg? I don't remember his name. But anyway, he's going to be, he made that movie. So we're going to be talking about that and the next Friday. So that will be coming out pretty soon. Other than that, we just reviewed Adam Green's new film on Evil Episodes, Digging Up the Marrow. Was that the latest episode? Shit. Stuff runs together. I don't know. And we were talking about, Walking Dead's back, so we've been talking about that. And then for Skeleton Crew, we just dropped episode 102. And I can't remember what that's about either. I'm waiting for Brian to fill me in the chat room here because he's our tech support.
Yes, Brian. I know. That's why we have him here. He's tech support. He fills in the gaps from info. Yeah, if you have a question, he's right there with it.
No, apparently he just thinks that's funny. He didn't help. I can't for the life of me remember what we talked about on the latest. Anyway, the latest Skeleton Crew's out there.
It's out there.
So there's that. And I guess that's about it.
All right. Well, as you saw, I got as far as the images for the legendary blog post. So that's
that's something.
The images are sitting on my desktop right now, so hopefully I'll get that review up soon here.
Oh my
Lovecraft,
God,
that's what you talked.
Lovecraft
that's why you had him on the
Brian
show.
Was a guest on the show.
That's why you had him on.
That is why we had him on. He was a guest on the show. I'm so embarrassed. Yeah, we talked about Lovecraft on. Oh, and also reviewed. We have one of our co-host Michael J. He made a movie when he was 16 called The Death of Michael Myers. Mm-hmm. And we did a review of that on the show, which is pretty funny because the movie's pretty bad. Mm-hmm. So that ended up being but yeah, Brian, he did a wonderful job coming on the Skeleton Crew and talking all about Lovecraft, which is what he knows all about, and he was amazing. And so everyone should check out that episode because if you don't know anything about Lovecraft or if you know everything about Lovecraft, then you'll want to check out that episode.
Yeah, I'm going to say he was great on our podcast when he was talking about Lifetime movies. So get him a subject he really knows. Yeah, exactly. Well, no, I was going to say get him a subject he really knows. He's going to be that much better,
Oh, right. Yeah, because he knows dick about Lifetime.
Right, and he still did a great job. That's what Yes, exactly.
But and also I've been uploading back episodes of the Insomniacs playlist onto LegionPodcast.com.
Oh, okay, so cool. So Legion, you can get those out. Okay.
So I'm sorry. Back to I totally Jamie Jacobs that.
Oh,
back to you.
No, that's okay.
You got as far as the art.
I got as far as the images. So hopefully soon we'll get that. But we'll see what happens. Also, I figure with this Star Trek episode, I'll talk about my KNS fiction that I've got going on. This is going to be Volume 10, Episode 115, or Issue 115 of my KNS fanfic that I do. It's going to be Kirk and Spock are going on vacation in France to get away from things, so like a little lover's vacation. And hijinks will ensue there as far as me shipping them together as a loving couple.
Well, I hope it doesn't involve a funeral because Kirk won't be there.
I know. And I was wondering if I should just get rid of the fanfic altogether, but the thing is, I realized it's not Nimoy, it's Spock. Who is with
right.
Kirk,
yeah, the character lives on.
Yes, and I want to talk to people out there who really love the story arc where I had the guys time travel back to the gay 90s. Thank you for all the support. I'm hoping to maybe get them back there in a couple maybe next volume. We'll get them back there for that, and who knows what kind of love that will ensue between the two of them there. So I guess maybe that's as good a time to wrap it up as any. So thank you all for listening. I hope you all have a great week.
Everyone.
Thank you. Thank you for checking us out, and we will see you all next week. Goodbye, everyone.
Football is back, and BetMGM is inviting new customers to join the huddle and enjoy the action like never before. Sign up today using bonus code CHAMPION, and your first wager is risk-free up to $1,000. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. 21 years of age or older to wager. Virginia only. New customer offer. All promotions are subject to qualification and eligibility requirements. Rewards issued as non-withdrawable free bets or site credit. Free bets expire 7 days from issuance. Please gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-888-532-3500